Welcome back to another Enough Already podcast. It's been 3 weeks since we talked last, and it's all my fault. I apologize, but times are tough, and Dollar Trees just don't loot themselves.
Yeah.
So, but here we are. We're back. Tracy, where do we start? It's been a crazy few weeks.
That it has, Fingers. That it has. We've transitioned from pandemic to pandemonium overnight.
Right.
And I would like to take full credit for the prediction that I made about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, that the TV show called COVID-19 would not survive May Sweeps Month. People are bored of that TV show, so it's going to get canceled. And right on cue, end of May, we've got something new going on. It's much more entertaining.
Unless you're a business owner, then,
Correct.
you know, you had the COVID-19 and people weren't coming to your business, or the government told you to shut down and you weren't allowed to do business. And now you're starting to open up, and now your business's windows are knocked out if you're in the city, because here we are. It's funny. You know, you watch the video of George Floyd and what happened. And I think I can say with a fair amount of certainty that 95% of the people in America who saw that video were horrified.
I'm guessing it's closer to 99.9.
It all depends on your attitude and in your belief system as far as how many people are truly sick in our country. So if you say it's 1%, that's fine. I think it's
1% of 350 million is still a big number.
That is still a big number. We were all unified in our outrage, our concern, our disgust, you name it. We were all unified. And in a blink of an eye, it turned from we're unified and listen, we'll even go out and we'll protest, this is terrible, to let's break some shit.
Yep.
And look, and the thing that disgusts me the most is how people, not all, but a lot of people on the left explain it away. Well, people have insurance. It's okay. People have insurance.
Do you think people have riot insurance? I mean, do you know how nitpicky insurance is? People bitch about health insurance, right? Oh, I didn't realize that wasn't covered because I didn't report that mole. Something weird that throws off your whole coverage that you thought you had. Oh, right. Loophole, F you. Sorry, buddy, we're not paying out this claim.
Yeah.
Unless you have coverage that specifically covers this kind of shit, guess what? You're not getting paid out.
No. And the attitude too that it's just a broken window. Well, if you look at the footage, a lot of it isn't just a broken window.
Yeah. Well, how about I just come to your house and break your window and see if you're just like, oh, it's fine. It's just a window.
Right. It's maddening to me, this cavalier attitude when it comes to property destruction in the name of social justice. People just seem to be, in certain circles, completely okay with it. And the thing that I find hysterical about the whole thing is, here we've had the last few years this narrative from some, especially social justice warriors, that hate speech is violence. If I call you, if I misappropriate, or what did I say, misgender you. If I walk up to you and say, "Excuse me, miss," and oh, I'm a they/thee, that is hate speech and violence. But if I commit violence during the cause of pushing the cause of social justice, that's speech.
Yes.
If that's your attitude, go fuck yourself. Seriously. And to hear some people, it simply amazes me. The cavalier attitude from the blue checkmark smart set, saying things like, well, it's just a window, it's just property. Well, at least, people have lost their lives. Oh, okay, really? Tracy, say someone comes up to you at work and says, good morning, sugar tits.
I would probably laugh.
Well, okay, maybe you laugh. But if you were offended, ticked off that your boss said that to you, you'd be justified. But if the attitude from your superiors was, listen, in the grand scheme of things, at least he didn't kill you. What is this? What is this attitude? Oh, well, I walked up to Francis and I said, good morning, madam. And Francis is a they. I misgendered that person. Can you imagine if a right-winger said, well, in the grand scheme of things, at least he didn't kill you?
Well, now you can.
Apparently.
Yeah.
That's going to be the attitude going forward. Doesn't matter what happens to you that is negative. I'm just going to come over the top with, well, at least he didn't kill you. Wow. Simply amazing. 2020 is a hell of a year, and it's only June.
I know. Oh, man. But I do like this TV show more than the last one, I have to admit. At least people are outside. Yes. Because you know what? I think this will blow over pretty quickly. It seems to be dissipating now. And what it did was it canceled COVID. We're done with that bullshit. We really are.
Yeah.
There's no more of this, oh my God, if people go outside and they don't socially distance and we're all going to die. That went right out the friggin' window.
Right.
Because social justice trumps everybody's public health. I tweet our PA Department of Health. We go yellow tomorrow, by the way, fingers. That means I might be able to get a seat outside at a restaurant. Because we're not allowed. Who knows?
I got a way for you to get a seat. Put a brick in your hand.
Yes.
And throw it through a window.
About it.
Plenty of seats available now.
But it lends the lie to all of that. Our PA health department's tweeting out helpful infographics for going outside and what you should do and stuff. And I said, our governor retweeted it, how to be safe and when you go back to the real, and when we go yellow kind of thing. And I said, where is the one that has the looters on it? And I don't know, anybody that follows me on Twitter or Periscope might have caught the fact that I ended up in the midst of a local protest. So I went for a Sunday afternoon stroll. Mm-hmm. And being the pack rat and the one that's constantly worried about being prepared for anything, even though I just planned to leave and go for like 5 miles or so, I had a backpack with waters and snacks and a battery pack. And so I walk out my front door and I'm seeing all these cop cars go by. I'm like, what? And they're not even my local cops. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, interesting. And I walk a variety of ways, but that day I decided to walk a street that's parallel to the main downtown drag here. And every intersection I look down towards the main drag and there's a bunch of cop cars that have it blocked off. So finally I get curious. I'm like, I need to know what the hell is going on because I can't see anything except these cop cars. So I walk up to the main drag and there are a couple cops standing on the corner. So I said, what is this? What are you guys doing? Because they closed down that street quite a bit. And I was like, oh, are we just having like a random celebration? We're almost yellow, like F the governor. We're not waiting until Friday. He's like, oh, well, there's a protest march. I'm like, okay, cool. So I just start filming and I'm like, all right, so tell me a little bit about this. It's 12:30 in the afternoon on Sunday. He said it started about a half an hour ago. And the city of Reading is on one side of the Schuylkill River. And where I live is on the other side. So I live on the west side of Reading and downtown. One of the poorest cities in the whole country, mind you, is right across the river. So they started across the river at the high school.
Okay.
Because the high school has something to do with police brutality, right? Okay. I didn't realize that until I joined their little march and marched back with them. They allowed themselves to be corralled by the cops' fingers. So the cops would jump ahead. There had to be 50 cop cars. They would jump ahead and decide what streets they wanted to direct them down. So we I went 3.5 miles with them back across the river and up a giant hill on Mount Penn.
Was a police officer the grand marshal of the
pretty much
parade?
And like people had lost enthusiasm by that point. Like there's only so many rounds of no justice, no peace that you can chant. And then we'll dip into Black Lives Matter for a little bit. And you've got competing sound systems with NWA. But then I heard like some Get Down on It. I'm like, what? This is, like I get going to Marvin Gaye maybe. Like what's going on? I can handle that. That makes some sense. There's some 60s, 70s music that could be appropriate, but to go hear out of one ear, F the Police and Straight Outta Compton and Public Enemy, and then I'm hearing, Get Down on It. Okay. So we get up to the high school, and this lovely young black girl gets on the mic and talks about how we all need to be peaceful and all this. And I'm like, okay, this is not bad. Another one, and then I stopped filming because I was like, this is boring. Nobody wants to watch this. Like I kept apologizing to anybody that's tuning in live. I'm like, I have no idea. Maybe this will go sideways. Seems a little early in the afternoon for things to get
channeling
rough.
Your inner CNN, hoping something was going to go off the rails.
Yeah. I've been in the middle of these things enough to kind of get a sense of it because my takeaway from being in the middle of Occupy Wall Street protests, being at the DNC in 2016, is that there are two factions in these kind of situations. And they're left, both of them are left. One is the normal run-of-the-mill liberal Democrats that are legitimately there on a peaceful mission. And then you've got the hardcore destroy everything. They've become Antifa. Prior to that, they were the Black Bloc, and it's the communist, socialist, workers of the world unite bullshit. And I've seen them, especially at the DNC, they were going head to head. And you've got the peaceful hippies, like, we all just want to get along. They're doing their hacky sack shit. And then you've got the guys in the face masks, all black, riot helmet, ready to rock. And I saw a couple of people that looked like to be on that side of the equation. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I kept laughing about is how many of these people are wearing masks. And I said to two different people, I rounded a corner and this guy, and I don't know if he was Dominican or Puerto Rican or whatever. Redding is minority Latino. So I do think that had something to do with the fact that people weren't that riled up. Okay. It's not a large black population in the city. But this guy came around the corner and he's screaming, F the police. And he's wearing a mask. And I said to him, do you not see the disconnect here? And he's like, what? And I was like, you're yelling against the state, right? For all intents and purposes, let's just call it the state. But you're complying with their orders at the same time by wearing their mask. Which he then told me, he's like, no, this is because my wife told me to do this. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. I understand.
That's a higher authority than the state, Tracy.
Absolutely. Your wife is probably more terrifying than the Redding PD to you, sir. I get it. So then when we're up at the high school and everything kind of starts to break up or whatever, I see this Brooklyn hipster-looking, scrawny, skinny, pasty white couple. And the girl has a sign that says something about non-compliance, do not comply. She's wearing a bandana up to here. So I mosey on over and I say, I'm a little bit confused by your messages here. It's a little mixed message. And she's like, what do you mean? And I said, you're pushing non-compliance while you're wearing the clothing of compliance on your face. For all intents and purposes, you're a sheep, young lady. And she goes, oh, no, this is because I don't want to be identified. I'm like, okay. All right, gotcha. At least you're being honest. I appreciate that. And I said that to her. I said, I appreciate your honesty. It's a really good cover for anybody that doesn't want to be identified to wear these things. But looking at it, it's hard to tell. And I would peg it at like 75-25, maybe even 80-20. Mm-hmm. Of mask wearers that are doing it because they think it's the responsible thing to do while we burn shit to the ground versus the 20% who are like, oh, this'll confuse any cameras they've got out here.
I think a lot of it too has to do with the fact that you have people out there that are participating in these protests. And by the way, I have no problem with participating in protests.
I don't either.
That many times in the last 10 years and not a problem with it whatsoever until you decide to bash someone's head in with a skateboard or destroy someone's business. That's where I'm like, okay, you lost me. But walking down the street, trying to initiate change, it's an issue that there needs to be change. And so I'm fine with what's going on if it's done in a peaceful manner. But I think some of these protesters who are on social media know that they have tweets and they have Facebook posts calling people who were protesting all of these stay-at-home orders grandma killers. They don't want to be then seen out in public just a couple of weeks later without a mask on protesting. You know, they know what they did back then, and they want to show that they are, you know, still on their soapbox. So, oh yeah, I can protest with my mask on because I care about grandma. You grandma.
I'm out here because I care.
Right.
And so I'm going to show that I care. Have you seen those silly memes? I wear my mask because I care about you. And you wear your mask because you care about me.
That's what activism is in 2020. Look, we've talked about it plenty of times. I do wear a mask in public when I go to stores because I've gotten a sense from clerks at, say, Costco, which I believe you're still required to wear a mask going to Costco. But I've gotten a sense from cashiers at grocery stores that it makes them feel a little bit safer if customers are wearing them too. That's the only reason why I wear one. I mean, I've said this over and over again. This feels very much like pandemic prevention theater.
Yes.
So but if it makes someone who is stuck at a register all day, dealing with hundreds of people, making less money than if they were staying at home, unemployed, then okay, it's a small sacrifice to make this person feel a little bit safer. But going back to that point, you know, before, when this first started happening, I thought to myself, okay, this is going to last a week and then it's going to calm down. But you basically have government subsidized protesters at this point. Mm-hmm. People are collecting $600 a week federally, and then whatever they're getting paid by the state unemployment office. This may drag out for a while because basically the government is subsidizing protests at this point because of the CARES Act. I don't see how things are going to change anytime soon, but I think what you're seeing and what you will see, Tracy, Trump's approval numbers have dropped because this is not in his wheelhouse. He's not Reagan, you know, after the Challenger tragedy, bringing the American people together with a beautiful speech. That's not in his wheelhouse. But what's going to happen here, I think you're already starting to see it, is the left is going to overplay its hand like it always does. They're going to continue to do the protests. I don't think most Americans have a problem with it. It's the violence that people are just going to say, I've had enough of this. I do not want to go to downtown Indianapolis. I'm in central Indiana. Go to downtown Indianapolis and all the buildings are boarded up and there's spray paint on the plywood and there's graffiti, and people are going to say, enough of this. I want to be on your side. I want to help bring the change that is necessary. But do you want me to help you? I mean, do you really want my help? Or do you just want me to shut up and just vote Democrat? Are we going to have a dialogue here? I go back to, I'll never forget, back in 2000, I worked for a auto parts manufacturing company. And I was working next to a guy who's probably 25, 26 years old, black, just hired in. And this was an American company, and he was driving a Lexus. And this was in Henderson, Indiana. Okay. It's a decent sized town, probably at the time, like 60,000 people. Industrial town, very much tied into the auto industry at the time, not so much anymore. And so I'm talking to him, real nice guy. And, you know, I said, well, so what are you going to do? You're going to continue to drive the Lexus? Because, you know, it's an American parts manufacturer. It provides parts for the big three. This was a, you know, former big three plant that you're working in. what are you going to do? And he said, yeah, I'm selling it, but it really has nothing to do with, part of it is the fact that I'm working for this company, but the other part of it is I get pulled over like once a week by cops because I'm a young black man driving a Lexus. I thought, oh, a bunch of bullshit. How tiring would that get? Just, okay, I'm going out, main drag up. Just going to have my registration and proof of insurance right on my visor because, I'm going to get pulled over probably in the next couple of days. I mean, how old would that get? So, look, there needs to be change. I think we all agree. But damn it. Where's our humanity? Destroying businesses. I don't know if you saw and I'm blanking on the retired officer's name in St. Louis who got shot and killed in cold blood trying to defend his friend's pawn shop. And there he is. He's lying there, and you could tell he's still alive. And nobody's getting down on one knee to hold his hand to try to comfort him in some way. Just got their damn phones. People are recording it.
No, people are so desensitized anymore. That gentleman's name was David Dorn.
David Dorn. Yeah.
I really think people have lost the ability to differentiate television from reality. I think we're so attached to screens. You've been locked inside for 3 months. If you've lost your job, what do you do? You're probably spending a lot of time looking at stuff, and it confuses the hell out of your brain. Like we're like I guess our parents kind of had television their whole lives, but we're really the first generation that's always had that. And then younger kids, they've never not known a world where they can look at that. And that's at first in humanity. Who the hell knows what that's doing to our brains?
Right.
So that's what I started treating it like it's a television show, because it is. And I just stopped watching the coronavirus coverage because it's total bullshit and nobody can agree on anything.
Right.
And this idea went out the window that people can be wrong. And I started thinking about it. If you got a cancer diagnosis, what's the very first thing that somebody would tell you to do?
If you got a cancer diagnosis, get a second opinion.
Correct. Why is that? Because doctors aren't always right.
Right.
But as soon as they scared the shit out of everybody and seeing the stuff from China where they're, welding people into their apartment buildings and killing people on the streets because they might have it, and the crematoriums are running 24 hours a day, and then you see Italy's going nuts and there's no food on the store shelves. They got everybody in that terrorized mindset. Everybody's been traumatized now. So it's almost like if I wanted to get super cynical beyond my normal level of cynicalness, it's almost as if these Democrat governors that insisted on keeping their states locked down were waiting for something like this to happen so they could have a complete explosion of all this pent-up energy from people being locked inside. It just so happens that it's finally nice enough to be outside.
Right.
We had an unusually cool and kind of disgusting spring here. I don't know about you. The weather wasn't pleasant. I wasn't like, oh man, I wish I could be outside all day long every day.
Rainy and crappy for a lot.
Yeah, it was pretty shitty. So it wasn't too bad to be inside. And now all of a sudden it's the week after Memorial Day. Feels like summer's finally here. Mm-hmm. And we get some shitty cops acting like assholes and killing somebody.
Yeah.
And that infuriates me too. But let's talk about how we can really fix it instead of putting up with politicians like my governor who's saying, oh, this systematic stuff needs to end. And I'm like, dude, you're the system.
Right.
You're at the very top, like you're acting helpless. Here's the problem as I see it. There are too many goddamn laws on the books.
Yeah.
We've criminalized everything. And you've turned cops into tax collectors because you can't stop spending and you can't steal enough via taxation. So you're just going to keep making up little rules that if you violate them, I have a reason to stop you and interact with you. And it's in those interactions that these things go down.
Yeah.
So can we not have that conversation?
No, we can't, because the people who are screaming for more regulation are the same people that are complaining about the systemic problems that we have in law enforcement. I have a friend who is a retired police officer. I think he's about close to 60 now. I'm in his mid 50s. He's black. He is from Ohio. He was a police officer in Ohio, and he had this long, heartfelt social media post talking about the changes that need to happen, in his opinion, when it comes to policing. And one of the things that he said was there is, at least in his experience in his department, there were these factions of people who wanted to do the right thing, wanted to be servants of the community, wanted to be compassionate. And then you would have a portion of the force that would just want to be badasses and hard asses. And you would be marginalized, you would be made fun of if you weren't part of the badass group of cops. That stuff needs to be cleaned up. The police unions, they need to be cleaned up.
Need to be gone.
Yes. I look, if you have a union, I'm not anti-union. I'm not a big public sector union guy. But okay, if the union is there to push back against silly stuff about a police officer, boss claims he's late, that kind of crap, and he's not, trying to get a vacation day, stuff like that, okay, it's fine. But when you hear stories about this cop in Minnesota having something like 18 different complaints against him throughout the years, are the unions protecting bad cops? And if they are protecting bad cops, and it sounds like they are, then heads need to roll. That's part of the reform that needs to happen in law enforcement. But you're exactly right. I'm sick and tired of hearing people be upset about how they're being policed and how we're being policed in general, the militarization of the police force, which is a whole different conversation. And yet you continue to turn to government to try to regulate everyone's lives. Here in a few weeks, there's going to be a new law regarding driving while texting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, gee, you really shouldn't be driving while texting. Yeah, I get it. You really shouldn't be texting while driving. Excuse me. But do we need just one more reason for law enforcement to pull people over? Is that what we're begging for? We need less interaction between the police force and the citizenry, not more.
Exactly. And then you could cut the number of police. And maybe we could work on a program where it's proactive stuff instead of reactive. It's just infuriating. And I don't think the few protesters that I talked to at this march, they don't seem to make that connection. Because they said, why are we at the high school? Why aren't we at City Hall?
Right.
Like when I'm walking along with them, I'm narrating some of the stuff, like telling people the fun facts that I know about beautiful Reading, PA. And like, you can look at the town as I walk through it and think, oh, those buildings probably used to look really nice. And now it's turned into a complete third world shithole. I mean, it's stark reality that one side of the bridge, it's pretty nice and livable. I mean, you could drive through neighborhoods down the street for me and you'd think you're in Bel Air. As soon as you cross the bridge into downtown, you're like, holy fuck, did I just end up in Haiti? Like, what the hell happened? I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I've talked about, and it's funny because I've wanted to walk around downtown and take photographs, but I've always been afraid to do it, even during the daylight hours. Yeah. But I was like, oh, now I'm surrounded by 200 people and I can just go video all this stuff. But I try to have a conversation about this. And like, you need to be protesting the mayors, the governors. These are the people that make the rules that then they send out the cops to enforce. Just think about this as the guard dog attacking you. That's what they are. No, why are you giving them more? I mean,
because so many of them want to blame Trump. It's Trump's fault. It's Trump's
I didn't hear
fault.
A word about him in anything that
That's
I
right.
know.
I've heard plenty of people say it's Trump, and my response to that is, look, Ferguson wasn't Barack Obama's fault. You look back at what happened in Ferguson, and it goes back to what you said earlier. Ferguson treated their police force as a revenue generator.
Yep. And it's the best way to tax the poor. I think I've talked about it on this show before. I went through the city of Reading used to put out their budget as an Excel spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know anything about Excel, you can hide things. You can hide columns and rows. And so I was looking at it, and it was just kind of top line revenue kind of stuff. And then I noticed that the numbers running down the side jumped from, say, 15 to 300 something. I'm like, oh, they hid some cells. Let me see what's in here. And that's where they talk about the sources of revenue. In there, they had a line item, $5 million anticipated revenue to be collected via parking tickets, court fees, traffic tickets, and other assorted fines. This is one of the poorest cities in the entire country, and they think they're going to steal $5 million from these people.
Yeah.
That makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
Like, I can't go to a city council meeting because I'm afraid that I'm going to get thrown out for throwing a chair at these people and just be like, this is unconscionable.
Right.
This is gross. Like, I'll walk around and see a car with a boot on it, and it's like an 82 Camry. Like, they can't afford to pay for the tickets that they have.
Right.
So now you've just destroyed potentially their life. Like, they're never getting that car back.
No,
for what?
It's disgusting. I brought this story up before on the show, but I'll do it again. I was driving a few years ago in my local community. I got pulled over by a police officer, and I was going something like 7 over. It was something ridiculous. And he went back to the car. He ran my record, came back and said, listen, you got a clean driving record. But I am under orders to write a ticket to anyone I pull over. So rather than giving you a ticket for driving 7 over, and it was a ridiculous fine, like $150 driving 7 over. He said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut you a break, and I'm going to write you up for not wearing your seatbelt, which is a $25 fine. And I was sitting in the position of having to thank this officer, and I did, but part of me wanted to carry myself because like, I cannot believe I'm in a position where I'm thanking this guy for writing me a ticket that will cost me less money because he's cutting me a break because his boss is ordering him to write a ticket to everyone he pulls over because they need the revenue. It's sick.
And behind his boss is some dude in a suit wearing a flag lapel pin that's either called mayor or governor or whatever. It all comes from the suits.
Yeah.
So direct your anger at those guys. And the other thing I want to say about cops that I think we need to understand is we can all look at, say, pedophiles, for example, and think they go into jobs that put them in close proximity with children a lot of the times. You know, the Catholic Church is the prime example that everybody points to. Oh, pedophile priests everywhere. They're attracted to that. Well, don't you think that by that same logic, the sadistic people that want a lot of power and the ability to just kick the shit out of somebody when they want to are going to gravitate towards jobs that pay them to do that?
Yeah.
So these are the bad apples. Is there a way to weed them out? Are they not given psychological profile tests before they're allowed to go in there? Just send those guys, join Blackwater, join the military, go be a mercenary, but do not get a job walking the streets of the country and dealing with the citizens.
It's so tough because I know that if you look, I've got more experience with Michigan. Detroit city cops aren't paid well.
No.
So you need to attract good people, but at the same time, the cash isn't there to pay these people properly. So it's really, really difficult. And also the other thing too, and this probably isn't a popular thing to say, especially nowadays. I just have I don't understand why people on the right have this natural reaction to automatically believe a police officer. Listen, I respect police officers. I've got family members who are cops, but I'm suspicious of all government, and they're an enforcement wing of the government. So I don't understand where right wingers are coming from, where they're like, okay, we're suspicious of all government, but here you've got people who, if they want to, they can really abuse their power and get away with it. in a
Yeah.
lot of instances. I think we should be suspicious of law enforcement just as suspicious as we are of the Department of Education.
Exactly. But there's something about that uniform that's burned into our skulls from the time we're little. Officer Friendly came and visited. We should listen to him.
Yeah.
He's there looking out for you, protect and serve. Yeah, do you think they're protecting and serving when they're standing by and watching these businesses get burnt to the ground because the mayor's told them to stand down?
Right.
No, and I'm with you on this. I don't understand that. The only thing I can think of is that on the right, people are much more likely to respect this system, which includes the rules therein, and say, okay, well, these are the rule makers and the rule enforcers, so we're going to defer to them.
Yeah.
But
I don't know how you feel about it, and this may be an oversimplistic attitude about what's been happening the last few days. I'm against curfews. I don't understand why people are so ready to participate in a curfew. You have, I'll use Indianapolis as an example. I'm guessing it's at least 550,000, maybe 600,000 people who live in Marion County, which is Indianapolis, and they were put on an 8 o'clock curfew because of what happened in downtown Indianapolis with a few hundred people. I'm sorry. Get law enforcement down there. Call the National Guard. I don't have the problem with the National Guard being down there enforcing shit. But to tell 500,000 people you have to be in your house at 8 o'clock.
they've had us grounded for 3 months, Fingers.
I know.
We are nothing but children to them.
I know.
ATMs that are, teenage ATMs as far as they're concerned. And look at how well everybody behaved.
Yeah.
So they respect that. It's the same thing. Like, I don't understand why anybody put up with being locked in. And now they're being told, you better go home or we're going to, take your license away for a couple weeks and take your cell phone, kid, and you're grounded again.
Yeah. And then the other thing, too, in this whole thing that we really haven't touched on is Antifa. They're basically using you, and you could see it happening. You can see the daylight protests and the environment. And daylight. A friend of mine, Brian, Positive Energy on Twitter and on Instagram, has been walking through these protests, filming. And yesterday he had a bunch of footage of protests in Denver, and it was almost like a street carnival during the day. It looked like there were some former high school marching band people, and they're marching down the street. They're playing Gary Glitter, and I'm surprised nobody called him out on playing Gary Glitter, because Gary Glitter,
yeah, right,
not a great guy, but still, hey, da 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 da, hey, like that, and everybody's having a good time. They're out there. They're trying to change the system through protest. That's great. But then something happens when it gets dark. When the sun sets, that mood changes, and the people that are there that want to protest and really don't want to be violent, that crowd kind of dissipates, and then the pros come out that want to start busting skulls and breaking windows. And they're using the protesters who are peaceful as human shields and throwing shit. And it disgusts me to no end that you have people who really don't care.
Right. Yeah, this is a nihilist.
No, yeah, they really don't care about George Floyd.
No.
And they care about tearing down the system, tearing down capitalism, and they're trying to forward an agenda of theirs off the back of a black man's corpse. And it completely disgusts me. But here we are, and they keep doing it. And I feel bad for the people that are going out there protesting and trying to make an impact and try to change the system in a peaceful manner. And how many times have you seen it, Tracy? There's video footage of protesters confronting the violent ones. There's a video, a great video capture. I think it's in front of the White House, of a young black female protester yelling at these two white Antifa looking guys who are pushing down the barrier. And she's saying, stop that. They're not going to shoot you. They're going to shoot me. And they're like, well, they're going to shoot you anyway. And they continue to push on the barriers.
Oh, shit.
There's another one that was all over the internet was there was these two looked like they're white girls all dressed in black with the ninja looking thing, whatever the hell they're wearing, and they're spraying on a Starbucks, and a black woman walks up to them and says, stop it. They aren't going to blame you. They're going to blame me.
Well, and this is my neighborhood too. I mean, that's the other thing that's going on. It's like, you guys come in here and you destroy my neighborhood. You don't seem to understand. Capitalism is not shopping. That's not what this is. And if that's the point you're trying to make by destroying these stores, you're undermining your point when people go in and steal the stuff, because that just tells me, the watcher, that people really like consumerism and crap. They want that. So they're not on board with your stupid agenda.
Yeah.
They're not mad at Gucci. They want everything out of the Gucci store that they can take.
Right.
And I understand. I get it. I like stuff too. I'm just not up for stealing it.
Well, and we need to start throwing the argument back at them. How many times have you heard a socialist say, well, real socialism hasn't been tried yet?
Yeah.
Well,
every single time.
Yeah, real capitalism hasn't been tried yet.
No,
this is
it legit hasn't.
This is crony capitalism. Real capitalism hasn't been tried yet. And see the look on the face.
Huh. Well, I like it when I tell them that we already live in a fascist state. Obamacare is not socialist. That's fascist. Look it up, kids. It's when government works hand in hand with private corporations. What do we have going on right now? Oh, Amazon's going like gangbusters. Mom and pop shops? Meh. No, we can't have you open. I haven't been to Lowe's, but I've heard that it's pandemonium over there because everybody's shopping. Nobody cares about social distancing. They're not really enforcing mask wearing. Whatever. So the big boxes are surviving. Walmart's now a savior for everybody. I thought we hated them.
Right.
People let them stay open. Just crush any independent business that existed, and we'll let them burn to the damn ground. Because God forbid we stop this stuff.
Yeah. And if they're on life support and they happen to be downtown, we'll just drive the final nail in the coffin by destroying the business. But that's okay. They have insurance. Windows can be replaced, Tracy, but at least they didn't kill you.
Right. No, and wait, I saw somebody tweeted, has Krugman written a piece yet about how all this destruction is actually going to be beneficial for the economy? I mean, it's the classic. I know everybody knows the broken windows stuff and they think Giuliani, but the original open windows is Frederick Bastiat writing about the seen and the unseen, and had this idea that, a kid throws a rock through a baker's window and everybody kind of gathers around and they're like, well, see, now the glass worker will have a job because that kid broke the window. So it's everybody wins. I'm like, but what would the baker have spent the money on if he didn't have to buy the window? Would he have gotten a second oven? Maybe he would have franchised. Who knows? And you'll never see that. And that's been the problem with this whole virus thing. All you see is the numbers of people that are dying, but you don't see the other lives that are destroyed.
Right.
Like, I want to see people making videos, hey, COVID-19 took my life. And by my life, I mean it destroyed my business, or it prevented me from walking in my high school graduation. Whatever it is, like our lives have been stolen from us, those who still have them, for 3 months by the government.
Which, if you're 15, not a big deal. My dad's 82.
Yeah.
I don't know how many months he has left. And the spring and the summer, gone. Now, he has a compromised immune system. He's borderline diabetic, heart issues, and he's 82. So the argument could be made, okay, he needs to be careful, but he doesn't need the government shutting down the entire economy. He can make a personal decision. And he's told me repeatedly, I am making a personal decision. As soon as my favorite bar is open, I'm going to my favorite bar because I'm 82 years old.
Yeah, good for him. He should.
And I'm going to have a good time.
He should. And think about that. We're almost 2 weeks out from Memorial Day now, where we were treated to the hyperventilating on the news of, oh my God, look at the people in the Ozarks.
Yeah.
They're all right on top of each other. Look at the people in Ocean City, Maryland was the other one that really caught fire. Have you heard about big outbreaks in those two places? No. And now we've had a week of this chaos in almost every major city in the entire country. Thousands of people out in the streets. Some of them are wearing masks. Some of them aren't. Who knows? If we don't have a huge spike in 2 weeks, people are going to be over this and they're going to be furious. So I don't know if the news is just going to ignore that.
Of course they will.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have a giant asteroid heading our way the size of the Empire State Building, and that'll be the next story.
If only. I mean, pray for the sweet meteor of death.
Well, with that, we got to go.
Yes, we do.
Final thoughts?
No. I'm interested for the next iteration of this. Where do we go from here? Pandemic, pandemonium. What's your next P, Fingers?
War with China. That's next.
Okay.
War with China. Let's go with that. All right. She's Tracy. I'm Fingers. We'll be back soon with an all new Enough Already.